What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Crypto Tips Live. My name's Toby.
I'm Heidi, the blonde.
And yes, I have a John Smith Crypto saying you're late on putting out Paxos getting sued for trading BUSD. Well, here's the news. It's not really late because this is an ongoing thing, but I have also some other news as well.
I think he was referencing because it's 5:02.
Oh, sorry, guys. But yeah, that's a really good point. Okay, so the SEC has labeled BUSD as an unregistered security. Really?
Stablecoin. That's a new one.
Stablecoin, yeah. People put their money in stablecoins because they
expecting the value to go up.
Like 20x, right? Idiots. Okay.
Oh no! See, Gary Gensler's so used to an inflating currency like fiat.
Oh yeah, that's
Is that it. He's
that's
confused.
It. Okay. So let's see. Yeah, that it's kind of ridiculous. Okay, so they're suing Paxos essentially for this. Mm-hmm. In response, CZ says, in summary, BUSD is issued and redeemed by Paxos, and funds are SAFU. So he's like, whatever. Essentially. But Andrew, AP Abacus on Twitter, he says, expect Circle and USDC to be the next SEC stablecoin target to receive a Wells notice. What is a Wells notice?
It just basically means that they've been investigated and they have found some discrepancies. There's nothing about the severity of the discrepancies or what they actually are, but basically like they found something interesting to the point where they need to be notified that something has been found.
Yeah. So
and I thought that they already gave one to Circle, but
his sources say Circle will get sued, as will every other stablecoin of consequence. Look at PayPal abandoning their stablecoin project. What else do you need to know? So yeah, we knew that this was going to eventually happen.
Yeah.
Back in 2016, 15, 16, and we decided to slowly make our moves to get the frick out of that place.
I would just like to personally take this moment and thank Gary Gensler in helping to contribute to the further decentralization of this cryptocurrency space, because that's the thing. No matter how much who have an ideology that values decentralization, as much as we would like to see that happen, it's not going to happen unless it's really needed. And people like Gary Gensler make it needed because if they want to survive and like we've seen with Kraken, like Paxos and Circle have been by far like the most regulatory compliant example of anything to do with crypto. And the fact that Gary Gensler is targeting them, yes, it is low hanging fruit because they're centralized. But it's a perfect example that no one can comply to the SEC in crypto because it's cryptocurrencies and it's disrupting the whole thing that lines the SEC's pockets. But yeah, so thank you for your efforts in being the driving force in requiring more decentralization. If a cryptocurrency project wants to survive, it can't comply with the SEC. It will have to be robust against it. So with that being said, what other stablecoins exist that are decentralized? Truly decentralized? Not many. I feel like I'm repeating everything I've said about. I remember in 2017, what was it? What was the centralized exchange coming from?
Bittrex.
No. It was a decentralized exchange. Oh crap! I can't remember the name of it. It was like one of the first ones to go down.
Yeah, the one that got hacked, right?
Yeah, it was a Crypto Bridge, I think it was, or something.
Nah,
I think it was
wasn't
Crypto Bridge. I'm pretty sure it was Crypto Bridge.
Sure?
It was a decentralized exchange, and they had to shut down. Either they were hacked or they had to shut down because of regulations, meaning they weren't as decentralized as they were claiming to be or should have been. And we're going to see that play out in a lot of different stablecoins, a lot of different cryptocurrency projects. If they're claiming to be decentralized and yet the SEC can target them to take them down or have a lawsuit against them, they're not nearly as decentralized as they're claiming to be.
No.
So
Now, and keep in mind, like, we have seen the progression of this, right? So, you had essentially we run a subscription group, right, called the CT Club. And one of the most often asked questions is, how do I buy this coin? I'm a US citizen.
Yeah.
Wow, man. Like, I'm just like, I'm sorry. I like half the time I don't know what can be bought as a US citizen, but I do know that US citizens can buy off of decentralized exchanges.
Yeah.
So most of the coins that I find, I try to, help the audience out, which is mainly US citizens, and go, okay, here is this. US citizens can buy this. US citizens can buy this. But, that it's gotten way worse. So then after that, Binance.us. So Binance.com for the rest of the world, Binance.us for the US citizens. You can see how they're caging you guys, right? And so now you have all of this stuff happening. You have stable coins as issued as securities, and Paxos is going to be potentially sued for this. So you see the road that's going down. Keep in mind, Heidi and I renounced our U.S. citizenships because we knew that this would happen, and our financial freedom is much more valuable than any patriotism we have, like way more valuable. So we knew the steps that we needed to take, and we told people really early on, really early. We were called crazy, we were called unpatriotic, we were called traitors, all this other stuff, and now some of the same people are like,
called that.
Yeah, but now some of the same people are like, man, you're kind of right. Like it's called foresight. And if you don't have it, you're going to be screwed in this space. So that's where people like us can come on and go, hey, we tout this all the time. And it may seem kind of annoying. Decentralized exchanges, keep your own custody of your own keys, all this other stuff. And, getting other citizenships, all this type of things to keep you free. This is what we want. This is the whole point of this channel, is to make you financially free and not feel like you're caged by your own government. Mm-hmm. So anyways, that's my little rant.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I don't know about you, Toby, but every time I hear someone ask me, oh, how do I buy this as a U.S. citizen? Like, it's just one more reminder of why I'm glad that I renounced. And, we've had comments too on Twitter as well. People are like, well, it's great for you guys. You're so passionate about crypto. You're willing to go through those lengths for it. And not everyone is that passionate. True. Very true. But for me, it wasn't just specifically about crypto. It was the whole concept, right? Of like, being able to even make that decision myself, to have the freedom to invest or not invest in what I want to, not based on what my government allows me to have access to. And it is much more about crypto as well. It's like, if you're a U.S. citizen living and banking outside of the U.S., there's lots of banks that just don't want to deal with you because FACTA and FBAR and all the reporting that they have to do because you're a U.S. citizen. Not to mention the fact, if you wanted to invest in a foreign fund as a U.S. citizen, a lot of them don't even allow you to do that. For example, with the Golden Visa in Portugal, some options include either investing in property or putting it into an investment fund or just having cash in a bank account. Two of those options, it's going to be difficult to do as a U.S. citizen. So for us, it's a bigger concept of the facade of what the U.S. is trying to portray itself as is this freedom country. And the reality is that it's much more different. And being able to see where things are going and to take action before it gets to where it's too late for you to do that is something that not everyone can or will do. And that's something that we always do. Like, we never get too comfortable. Always looking for plan A, B, C, D, etc. And seeing, how things could change in the future, because everything could always change. You never know. And always acting to our best interests as best we can. So. Yeah.
Boss Libertarian, thank you for the $2. Appreciate it, man. It's a difficult decision at first. You have to decide, hey, you have to realize that maybe they won't ever let you go back into the States. You also have to realize that, yeah, it's quite a long process. You know, there are 2 meetings for renouncing your U.S. citizenship. Mm-hmm. The first meeting is pretty much, hey, you know what you're doing, right? Like, they give you all the negatives, essentially. They don't give any positive, but, you know, you can't pay taxes here anymore, you know, like all
don't say anything about taxes.
Yeah, don't say anything about taxes.
There's many more reasons to renounce that have nothing to do with taxes, by the way.
The main reasons why we did wasn't actually completely all about taxes. It was about other things like the U.S. military. I just didn't want to support them anymore. No way. I don't want to support the fiat empire anymore. Absolutely not. And so
we also didn't want to live in the U.S.
Yes, didn't want to live there in the U.S.
Why would that make sense to have that?
But many people want to live in the U.S. And, you know, if you're thinking about renouncing and you still want to live in the U.S., you know, you can visit the U.S. You can have like an ESTA or, you know, like for me.
You can apply for a tourist visa.
Yeah, tourist visa or whatever. So, and
it depends. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, you have to have a second passport, a second citizenship before you renounce your U.S. citizenship. There's a lot of things that we've talked about in previous videos that talk about specifically our experience renouncing, why we did it, and all of that fun stuff. But yeah, there was a comment that I got a couple days ago, someone saying about basically what happens when the bad guys come around and you don't have the U.S. to come in and save you, and which is what happens if basically war breaks out and you don't have the U.S. backing you. And my response to that is, I'm not scared of the boogeyman anymore. And that's the biggest thing. And that's probably going to piss off a lot of people, maybe in this live chat as well, tuning into this live stream. But that's what it is. And that's kind of a mindset that you grow to have after you've been traveling for so long and you've been to places and seen it for yourself and met the real people, and you see how it really is versus however mainstream media is portraying it, or however TripAdvisor is portraying it. What was that website you go to that we would go to before we would travel, and it would try to say like what it is there? Was it TripAdvisor? There was something like you try to see like how secure the country was. For, just do a
simple DuckDuckGo search or something like that, and you'll see like what's dangerous or whatever. But I mean, as far as like these people, who was it? I think it was the famous Pompliano, yeah, right. So that guy's like, I would never do that because, what if I get kidnapped? I'm like, what are you doing that you're going to get kidnapped, bro? Like, have you ever traveled a day in your life? The guy has not traveled. Pompliano, sorry, you're a very cute little bear, but you've never traveled.
Maybe he's been to Cabo.
He might have been to Cabo.
And maybe he goes to tourist destinations.
But seriously, we live in Portugal part of the year, and like there hasn't been a shooting in a year?
Most friendly country in the world. Like Portugal is like one of the top 5 safest countries in the world, and you can feel it when you get here. And I love Portugal, and it's not the only country like this.
No. Many different countries are very, very safe that we visit, that are much more crypto friendly and won't tax you on your global income, and so many more freedoms. Also, with the lockdowns or whatever, Portugal police, they're pretty chill. Like I was able to. I'm not very good with obeying rules and regulations, so I was able to kind of do what I wanted. I went surfing, whatever. Well, people are still hid in their house or whatever. I'm like, screw that. I like vitamin D and like staying healthy and stuff like that. So I got out and went surfing, walking, went on walks every day. Even though we couldn't fly too many places, and yeah, exactly. And then we went to Indonesia, to a place where we could just do whatever we want. Nobody told us to put on a mask for 6 months straight. And it was great, And so this is really nice. We have
To be fair, getting to that small island in Indonesia required a lot of obedience. But once we got there, then we could relax a little bit.
For a day and a half.
Dude, the world went a little crazy there for the past 2 years. I don't know if you guys realize
I wanted to leave the planet Earth.
But just like anything, when push came to shove and everything happened over those 2 years, you saw which countries reacted which way, the citizens reacted how. Well, how did your friends feel about it? And what were they researching and getting into, and what kind of information were they spreading to you? That's what, I don't know about you guys, but that's what we learned and took away from that past 2 years of our life, was learning, you know, who can we trust for information? Who actually will have our back moving forward? That's what Toby's mantra was, basically, was like, okay, cool. I'm going to help you out. You're going to help us out. It's going to be amazing. And I think a lot of communities were built actually around that as well. So that's really important, I think.
So we're going to give you a little bit of alpha now.
Thank you, Drew, for your super chat.
Much appreciate you
I'm
guys.
Glad you appreciate
Thank
us.
you. Really appreciate it. So, okay, moving overseas. So, first off, it takes a little bit of money sometimes, or you might want to look at your heritage or lineage or whatever. And
how to get second
so for instance, me, my grandparents. So, a little story about me. My family, my grandparents, they were my grandfather was put into a concentration camp. Both my grandmother and my grandfather parents were burned in an oven in Germany. So I'm just getting. This is the truth. What happened? So for me, learning about their experience and how my grandmother was able to get my grandfather out of Sachsenhausen in Berlin, and left Germany and fled to United States. That was one thing that I learned about from them, and they really instilled like, hey, you know what? If things get really bad and you can see this, you need to leave, because they had family members, family members that had left Germany earlier before it got really bad, and they said, listen, we're leaving. It's going to get really dangerous. So we would love for you to come with us. And my grandparents had a business over there, I think, selling suits and stuff. And their business was eventually taken away from them. They lost everything and had to flee to Shanghai. And that's where they had my mother. So that's one of the things that I'm like, you know what? I understand that all humans are pretty much the same. Like, Nazis aren't any different than any other race of people out there. You know what I mean? They just, the leaders, however, they knew psychological warfare. They know social engineering. They knew how to brainwash people, because people are programmable. Have you not seen the last 2 years? They're very programmable, and once you figure out their algorithm, like Edward Bernays, the father of propaganda, all these social engineers use this guy and his ingenious techniques to essentially brainwash people into doing pretty much anything. I think there's something called the Milner's experiment, to where people were regular people. Scientists got off the street and said, because they were told to like turn up the electricity that was shocking the person, because they were told, they would do what they were told more than, even though they knew the other person was getting hurt or could potentially die. So people are people, and I've realized that a long time ago, and that's why I left. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to have anything to do with the United States anymore. I can see where this is going. Whether it takes 10 years, 20 years from now, I don't want to deal with it right now, because I have one life. I don't want to waste it hoping that a politician's going to change my life or voting's going to do anything. One life. You have a certain amount of heartbeats in your life, and I'm not going to live in that, in fear and hoping potentially. And I can see where nations are heading. Okay, I think Mark Twain once said, that history doesn't always repeat, but it does rhyme. So it's very similar to different warfare tactics. What the U.S. is doing on their citizens right now, with what's happening with crypto and elsewhere. It's just different. But governments don't want freedom. They don't want freedom. If you haven't figured that out by now, oh boy, you got another thing coming. So that was my little rant.
How am I supposed to follow that? It's pretty heavy.
It is heavy. It's really sad. I would have loved to, had my great grandparents around. That would have been epic, but it didn't happen. So, but instead of crying about it, I need to learn from their mistakes, essentially.
Yeah. I think that you renounced. Yes, it is a big decision. Yes, it is a permanent decision. And more so if you have family or very strong ties to the U.S., it's even bigger decision than otherwise. But it's not like your life stops if you're not a U.S. citizen anymore. It's been the complete opposite for us personally. That's why we made this decision, is because we wanted to continue living our lives with as much freedom and autonomy as we could. And so that was just one more thing we had to tick off the box for. Being relatively young to do so, super happy to start off with a clean slate rather than when I went to my renouncement meeting, they were pretty surprised, in my opinion, to have someone as young as I was doing it. And they wanted to make sure no one was putting me up to it. Basically, that was their biggest concern. For me, it was just like, wow, I'm so glad that I can do this now rather than trying to clean up the mess of having a much more substantiated life in the U.S., of whether it's a business or properties or investments or whatever in the U.S. I didn't have any of that. And I renounced during a bear market, so that's always a good idea if you guys are looking to avoid being a covered expatriate. That is one thing that's like one of the most, I think, misunderstood aspects of renouncing, is like you have to pay an exit tax, or like you have to pay a lot of money if you want to renounce. You do have to pay the renouncement fee, which has skyrocketed over the past decade.
$2,350.
Yeah, big. They make you pay a lot of money to give up your citizenship. But if your net worth is under a certain amount, if basically your annual income is under a certain amount, if your taxes are all up to date and you've been paying your taxes up until then correctly, then
you're pretty set.
Then you will be an uncovered expatriate, which is a status that you want to have. That means you don't have to pay an exit tax. It means you don't have to continue to report to the IRS. It means that you can actually send funds back home to your family members without being taxed as well. So there's a lot of benefits to that. And if you can organize yourself that way, especially if you're heavily into crypto, you can make that price volatility work in your favor, especially during a bear market. Mm-hmm. And I highly recommend that you do that. So
I should say so you have that first meeting, right? Mm-hmm. at a foreign embassy. So you have to leave the U.S. to renounce your U.S. citizenship. And
you can't renounce in the U.S.
No, you can't do that. So, I mean, what we found is, like, for instance, Heidi did it in the Bahamas. That took 1 full day. Amen. That's awesome. For me...
That's why I chose the Bahamas.
Yeah. For me, it took...
2 weeks.
Over a month.
Normally it's 2 weeks.
Yeah, it took over a month.
Yeah, because there's always 2 meetings. The first meeting is where they tell you everything you're giving up. They want to make sure everything's okay. They want to take evidence of your other citizenship that you have and where you're living abroad, so that they know that you're not going to be stateless once you give up your citizenship. And then they have what's called the cooling off period. And different locations of embassies have different time allotments for that cooling off period. In the Bahamas, it's about 4 hours. In Spain and in other major countries, it's like 2 weeks. So Toby had to wait 2 weeks before his other meeting, which basically in the second meeting, you pass over your U.S. passport, you sign all the documents confirming that's what you want to do. You pay the $2,300. And then you get a receipt for your fee. And someone was asking in the comments, what's the fee for? I read it. Basically, they're saying...
To discourage you. That's what it is.
It is to discourage you, but they're not going to say that. They're going to say it's because of all of the cost of the bureaucracy. Like, what is it? Like, all the paperwork. Having to do all the paperwork. Because it's a higher fee now, they can afford to have it go through faster.
That's
total
BS. Because when I went to the first interview, they're like, well, we might not give it to you. You know what I mean? You might not be able to renounce or whatever. So
yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I can't renounce? Like, what are you talking about? So I kind of messed with the guard, which was pretty stupid. be very serious. I'm more sarcastic or whatever. I'm like,
yeah. Get what you gotta get done, guys.
Just get
play the game if you have to.
Yeah, play the game.
And then live
I'll
your
just
life.
swallow my pride a little bit.
There you go.
Okay, Bob Smith says, I hate to disagree, but the U.S. stopped Hitler and Nazis. It wasn't Portugal. I never said it. It was Portugal. But also, you should check out a book called The Tower of Basel, Switzerland, if you know the Bank of International Settlements, and see how that was created and see how they funded Hitler through the Bank of International Settlements and the Bank of England. And you wonder who was making the IBM chips and the General Electric.
Yeah.
So let's see what they were doing back then. So don't give the U.S. too much credit here. Okay. Let me move on to the second process. So for me, I drove all the way from Portugal to Madrid, right? And that took about 8 hours to drive there. Spent the night there, did the first renouncement meeting in the morning. And then, they just said it was a 15-minute meeting, by the way, 15 minutes. And I asked them, hey, can I just get this done right now? I've been thinking about it for a very long time. I don't need to think about it anymore. Heidi got it done in 4 hours. Me, I had to drive all the way back to Portugal, and then I flew back the next time, and then they pretty much brought me to a backstage place, like far away from everybody, and just said, okay, $2,350, and that was it. And got my certificate of renouncement. Mm-hmm. So you're kind of going to need that certificate of renouncement, especially if you want to ever go back to the United States or something like that. Mm-hmm. And also, it might help as well to keep that certificate, because if you're flying out of somewhere and they're like, what do you mean you came in with a U.S. passport, but you're leaving with another passport? But it'll help.
Absolutely. For me, with the Bahamas, I needed that because I came in. Actually, no, I came in with my St. Kitts passport, and I left with my St. Kitts passport. But they saw that I was from the U.S. They wanted to know why I didn't use a U.S. passport, because the Bahamas were very close to the U.S., obviously. And I had to tell them basically I renounced. And I've had zero issues using my St. Kitts passport traveling anywhere I want to. Also applying for visas when I needed to. No issues. So, no worries there.
Yeah.
One thing I was going to say about people who want to, because we went to the Nomad Capitalist event in September this year, and there was like so much helpful information, just like little things that you wouldn't know unless you go through these processes. And it was really cool just to have it laid all out for you, like within 3 days or however long that conference was. But there was one important detail that I learned because personally, obviously I did the St. Kitts and Nevis because it was fast. There's no requirement to live in St. Kitts and Nevis to get the citizenship. And I could travel to all the places that I wanted to, basically visa free anyway. So that was like a no brainer. But if I were wanting to go back to the US, they were basically saying there could be an issue if for some reason, because when you apply for a visa, especially to the US, they could deny you basically for whatever reason they want. And so if I were, which I haven't been back to the US in many years, if I were to apply for a visa back to the US and they were to deny me, and then I was trying to, let's say, get a citizenship in Portugal, I would have to explain myself why I was denied a visa in the US because, it's the European Union and the US is what it is. So basically, if you're trying to basically renounce from the US and also you're using, let's say, a Caribbean passport or kind of like an intermediary passport before you can get a more solid passport, like one from the European Union, let's say Portugal, you can get in 5 years. So you're better off probably waiting until you have a more solid passport where you can enter the U.S. on an ESTA. Just much more easy. You don't have to really apply for a visa like you would and have as much of a stringent process as you would with Caribbean passport.
Let me kick in really quick because, okay. I mean, if you have relatives, say, in the European Union, right, and your grandparents were
it
like
depends
German
what country it is. They're all different. It
depends. But like for Germany, it took me 7 years of applying.
Germany was going through some stuff with the exodus and all the refugees coming in. That was a thing that was
7
happening.
years. This is way before.
No, Toby, the refugees were pouring into Germany specifically because Germany was like, we will take everyone. And so their offices were legitimately flooded. That's why it took longer than normal.
I get that, but
I don't think it was 7 years, by the way.
It was 7 years. 7 full years, and I got that
Okay.
thing, right? And it was a long wait, and which is fine. I'm not complaining at all. I'm very thankful that I got a German citizenship just because I took the chance, and it was hard to get it because I couldn't find my mother's birth certificate. I couldn't find my grandmother's birth certificate. I couldn't find my grandfather's birth certificate.
Yeah.
I couldn't find
Special
anybody
situations
because
with
it was
that.
all robbed. It was stolen, and then like the birth certificate that my mom had, the hospital was demolished, and wasn't anywhere to be found. So yeah, that was really difficult, but they let me have it because I was able to find the boat that they went on. I had the signature of my grandparents, and then they took my mother along with them, and that was like a really good proof. Plus, that was pretty nice to find that. Writing the event horizon. I can understand renouncing citizenship, but if you would have just taken the time to learn the law, you would have realized just how much authority and freedom you really had. Of course, spilled milk. Well, I don't have time to learn, the 15,000 laws that are created every single year in the United States. Also, tax laws are constantly changing. Also, FACTA laws, FBAR laws. I mean, I don't want to spend time doing that. That's a complete waste of my time, man. Like, I'd rather learn about crypto, learn about DEXs, learn about what is actually happening around the world. That is actually very important. Instead of dealing with that all that bureaucracy, I am bored to tears on bureaucracy. Really, it really bores the crap out of me. So I'd rather just make the little move and never have to ever deal with that again. And then, as far as like freedoms or whatever, I mean, come on, what freedoms do I have now, or what freedoms do you have that I don't? I'd like to know that, because I can guarantee you that I have more freedoms now. It's a harsh reality, but I had to really think about this for a very long time before I renounced my U.S. citizenship. So, yeah. Let's see. Anyone else? If you live in a safe place with quality healthcare, then why stay in the USA? Oh, talk about healthcare.
Portugal is great.
Super cheap healthcare, and
affordable and good healthcare.
And we're in private healthcare as well, and it's still way cheaper than anything in the U.S. For instance, I got hurt. I had a surfing accident, and I busted some teeth. Right, like they pushed my teeth in a little bit. So I went to the dentist here in Portugal. And they literally put braces on me or took an X-ray.
Still in your wetsuit with sandy feet, no shoes,
no money, no nothing,
no wallet.
And it was literally like, you can pay later. That would never happen. Never happen. No way, Jose. That would never happen. But it, in Portugal, it did. And, we paid the €50 and then we're like, okay, we definitely need to get, private healthcare, which would be great. And so now we do. And then it's funny because the healthcare provider, it's global healthcare, right? So they're like, they said, okay, everywhere around the world, you can have healthcare for this much. But if you want to add the U.S., it's double. They're like, if you want to add the US, it's double the price of what you just paid. I'm like, no, of course not. But plus, the best healthcare in the world is, Singapore, you have France, you have Germany, you have many different places in the world that are way better healthcare than the United States. So like that too. And I don't know. I'm very thankful that we did this, and this is coming from somebody with experience that has been through this stuff. I get hurt sometimes surfing out here and I need medical care and I pay for it. It's fine. But it's pocket change. You know what I mean? And because the bureaucracy isn't really here. So that's what's one great thing about Europe and other places.
Michael Silverman is saying, FYI, Portugal is changing crypto tax laws. No more free rides. Yes, they did change their tax laws. Now, crypto to crypto is still tax free. Crypto to fiat is taxed if you don't hold that crypto for at least a year. If you hold it for a year, it's tax free. So, if you're let's say you buy Bitcoin and then you sell it within 6 months, you pay 28% tax on your profits if you have profits. If you hold that Bitcoin for 1 year, it's tax free. So totally pretty easy for us who are hodlers to hold it for 1 year. Or like the least you could do is go crypto to crypto and then just filter your profits into a stable coin, hold that stable coin for a year and sell it tax free that way. So super easy.
And it's not the IRS.
It's not the IRS.
So if you screw up, if you're like, okay, I want to make sure I do everything good, and you screw up a little bit,
you pay a fee, and then they say, try not to do that again.
Yeah, it's not the end of the U.S.
They're not going to lock you up.
They're not going to lock you up. They're not going to chase you around the world like they do in the U.S. and all that stuff. So they're going to be actually really pleasant to you. But, you got to still obey their tax laws, which is fine. But you don't have this overhanging stress of like, you know how you feel before you're about to submit your taxes.
We had like PTSD coming away from the US, by the way.
Yeah.
Maria, over and over and over again, had I say like, you guys relax. We are not the US. We are Portugal. We are a friendly country. We know how to make things work. It will be okay. And it's true. It's like you always have to look over your back for some reason. Like you're like, this can't be that easy.
Yeah.
It can't be actually working for my favor this time. Like what's wrong?
Yeah. Anyways. Well.
Yeah.
Guys.
So now you guys are all filled in on what we're doing.
Pretty much our life story. And, we are in the process of getting more residencies and eventually more citizenships. We're looking at places like Turkey. We're looking at other places that will allow for seamless travel around the world. So, for instance, because I'm German, I can't give Heidi German citizenship, even though
I would
we're
have to
married.
live in Germany for 5 years.
Yeah, which we don't want to do that. So, for instance, she has a residency card right now for Portugal, which is
thanks, Toby.
Yeah, very easy once you have a spouse that is a European citizen.
Yeah.
But after 5 years, Heidi can apply for a Portuguese citizenship. But that's one thing that I'm weary about too, because I think that you should never be a citizen of the country that you live in. There's many benefits to that, tax benefits and other benefits as well. But some things that you're probably gonna have to work around. So
if you can be a citizen of a country that doesn't tax your global income, that's a good start.
Is this brother and sister? Nah, that'd be pretty
husband
gross,
and wife, baby. Can't you tell? There's this electricity behind it between us.
Doherty, sorry if I butchered your name right there. Doherty, CT Club member here, and you guys are legit. You
really
told me and many other. Thank you so much.
Really glad to hear that.
Awesome. Well, let's end
Just
it with
you
that.
wait, Brendan. There's much more to come.
Yes.
You ready for learningcrypto.com, guys?
Yes. It's coming very soon.
It's coming.
Yeah, very excited about this.
Yeah. Also, in the meantime, I am editing some interviews I've done with Naomi
James
Brockwell.
Corbett too.
And that's coming first. Naomi Brockwell. This is legit information for you guys wanting to talk about privacy online and cryptocurrencies. And you guys, I did an interview with James Corbett. It was so good. He was really, really funny. He was like, you guys have a YouTube channel? And then we're like, yeah. And then he was wearing a sweatshirt that had a word on it. And then he was like, no more. Not anymore.
Yeah, he's so funny. He's a really cool guy.
Yeah. It was just like, like you talk to people and they're just like real. Like they are what you see. And that's totally what James Corbett was. So I really enjoyed that.
And then check Heidi out tonight. She's going to be on Miles Dusher.
Say it.
Okay, just Dusher.
Miles Dusher on Twitter.
Yeah.
We'll be tweeting out a link to that probably as well. It's going to be a late one. It starts at 10 p.m. our time, so I'm going to try to be as awake as possible, but they're going to talk about, prices of Bitcoin, of course, and also all this stuff that's happening with the SEC. So if you guys want to hear what me and a lot of other people have to say about how it's developing, you got to tune in.
Yeah. Guys, Have a good one.
Bye, guys.
We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. I never